Today I'm telling you about 10 ideas to change potentially your life, most probably the way you think about things, so your your viewpoint on certain subjects that pertain to these ideas. But overall, I would say that these ideas will change you in some way, form, or shape. Isn't it? I think it's supposed to be, the thing's supposed to be more like some way, shape, or form. But regardless of idioms and that stuff. Alright, we don't have time for that, right? So let's get right into it. The first one is you choose your regrets. And I remember back in high school or in middle school-ish, probably more high school, I remember telling myself and just having the philosophy of not having any regrets. Doing things so that I wouldn't have any regrets. And the thing is, you can't do that. It's impossible to not have any regrets whatsoever. Because whenever you're faced with a choice, who knows? The one that you chose could have been the worst one. If you had chosen the other one, it could have been better. You don't know this. Is it better for me to choose to have become a lawyer or a doctor? I don't know. I might go down the lawyer route and decide that this is not for me. I regret choosing this. But then, on the doctor hand, right, could have been more miserable or happier. Right? You don't know the results of your choices. You just know your choices. And that's sort of tying into another idea, but we'll get into that later. So everything is an opportunity cost. Every decision you make has a chance for regret. And so every choice you make, you are choosing what you regret. Whether you go into business, whether you take a risk or not, everything is a choice of what you're going to regret. The person who chooses not to start their own business and instead stays in their current job, they're choosing to regret not starting their business. If they do start their business, then they will be choosing to regret, possibly, staying at their job, right? If the business doesn't succeed. Everything in life, every choice you make is a choice of what you're going to regret. And therefore, that's how you should perceive things. That's how you should perceive the choices that you make. What are you going to regret? Are you going to regret going to college, going to debt? Are you going to regret having a one-night stand, knocking a girl up, and then tying yourself with her? Are you going to regret eating those cookies? Every choice you make is a regret that you make, that you get to choose. Number 2 is by Nietzsche. When you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. And so this quote is basically saying that when you defeat a monster, there is always the possibility of you becoming that monster. And so you can really see this a lot with bullies, because most bullies were bullied themselves. They started off being bullied, and eventually they became the bully. And this is known as bully recreation. I don't actually know if that's an actual term for it, but I just created it up because it sounded about right. And this is very evident also in wars. To defeat the enemy, you must be wary not to become the enemy. And this reminds me of a quote, or not really a quote, but a scenario with Winston Churchill, and he was talking to a newly partied person, and basically Churchill was showing this dude, all of Parliament. There's the bathrooms, there's the Great Hall. And then Winston Churchill shows him the Great Hall where all the parties are. And then the young guy is oh. And then the young guy points to the other part where the other party is going to sit. And he points to them saying, that's where our enemies are. And then Churchill turns to him and says, "No, dear boy. That's the opposition. The enemy is behind you." And I think that really ties into this because, especially in wars, you do everything that you pretty much can in order to win. At least that's how most wars are fought. And it's so easy to become amoral. It's so easy to toss out morals for the sake of winning. It's so easy to become a monster, to defeat a monster. And therefore, this quote is a reminder to not become a monster in order to defeat a monster. It is to retain yourself, retain your humanity, whilst also defeating the monster. Number 3 is that men are told to change themselves, whereas women are told that the world needs to change for them. And so this is basically about internal versus external locus. Men, when they have issues, they're told, it's your fault, you need to do something about it. It's like, if a guy can't get a girlfriend, he's told, there's something wrong with you. Alright? When a woman has issues with her life, instead people tell her, the world is wrong, you're so right, the world is wrong, yada yada yada. And well, one could say it's unfair. And certainly I would say it is. Because, yes, there's always an aspect of personal liability. Like, things in your life are your responsibility. They may not be your fault, but they are your responsibility. That being said, there are always circumstances. Right? There's always going to be some circumstances somewhere. And the reason I tell you this is because currently in our culture, you can see this everywhere. Women are constantly being praised, and men are just being told to shut up, grow up. Actually, not even grow up now. Everyone's telling men to just not even grow up, to just stay as little boys. So it's kind of even worse than telling men that their issues aren't their own issues. Right? But you can see this very prevalently in Western society, and it's really a shame. It's really unfair. And I would say it's actually more unfair to women, because by telling women that the world has to change for you, it means that you can't do anything about your situation. If you have a problem and everyone's telling you that you're right, you're absolutely right, and the world needs to fix something in order for you to be righted, you can't do anything. It takes your personal control out of it. At least when you tell men that, it's because of them, it's their fault, they need to do something about it, they have the initiative, the incentive to actually change something about themselves so that their situation gets better. Whereas women aren't. Now, of course, it's not going to be everyone, right? It's not going to be everyone. But for a vast majority, women are told they don't need to change. The world needs to change for them. Men are told, you need to change because you are wrong. Moving on, number 4 is a quote from Naval Ravikant, and it is, desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. And this is just damn. If you really think about it, every single desire you have means you're unhappy. Think about it. When you have a desire for something, if I'm desiring to get this new piece of clothing, I'm not happy when I have that desire. I'm happy when I get it, but only for a moment, until I'm no longer happy after I get it. And I think this also shows that we aren't built to be happy. We have so many desires all the time. You go onto the street, and then you see something cool that someone wears, and then you just think, I want that. I desire that. It's like you've just removed yourself from being happy again. And you get these thoughts hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. Maybe that's a lot, but we aren't built for happiness. Because if we were, we would not have all these desires constantly, all the time. And so, when you get a desire, just think, I am not being happy at this moment because I am desiring something. Because a desire fundamentally means that something is missing, and by getting this thing, I'll be happier. but it never works. Every single desire you have does not lead to perpetual happiness. And the Buddhists knew this, and so many Eastern philosophies knew this. It's why Buddhists decided to separate themselves from desire, because they knew that desire is something that inhibits your happiness. It stops you from being happy. And so, next, number 5 is another Eastern conception, or another Eastern idea, which is you are entitled to your actions, not the outcomes of your actions. And I think this was in the Hindu text where I really am not sure like the story, but a certain king, I forgot his name, was it? But he was waging a war against his family, and the god Krishna was basically giving him advice about, because he was really worrying about, I'm going to war with my cousins, like, what is going to happen? And Krishna tells him that you as a human are only entitled to what you do, what your actions are. You are not entitled to what happens after. And so this really frees you from a lot of suffering. Because if you're not entitled to the outcomes of your actions, you don't care about what you get on the test. You don't care about if you get that job. You don't care if the girl says yes. You just don't care. Because you're only entitled to your actions. You only care about, did I do this? Okay, I did. What happened? Doesn't matter, because I can't control it. It's not up to me. And you can also see this in Christianity with the serenity prayer. It's like, God, something, 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 grant me the wisdom to know what I can control and what I cannot, or something like that. I'll put it on screen. But this really frees you from a lot. Like, if you're feeling nervous about asking a girl, why are you nervous? Most likely because you're afraid of being rejected. Now, if you don't care about the outcome, you don't care about the rejection, you only care about, am I going to approach and talk to her? Then you're free. And so personally, this one has really changed a lot in my life, because there's so many outcomes that I want, but I'm not guaranteed them. So I'll just stop thinking about it. I'll just stop caring. I'll still put in the work. I'll still put in the actions. To me, the outcomes just don't matter as much anymore. And therefore, I'm much less stressed. Like for exams, yeah, I'll be more stressed than like my baseline, right? Of course. But I won't be hyper stressed like I used to be. Stressing about it a couple days before, stressing about it after I finish the exam, discussing the questions with friends. There's no need for that because it's done. I've studied, I've taken the exam. That's all I can do. Now it's no longer up to me anymore. And I think this one is definitely one you should integrate into your own philosophy of life. Number 6 is a monetary one. It's divorce money from time. And I think that this is especially helpful because the people who get wealthy divorce time from money. And what do I mean by wealthy? Wealthy does not equal rich. Rich equals having a lot of money. Wealthy equals being able to do whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. Wealthy, rather, is having the means to do something that you want. Because you can be rich and not wealthy at the same time. You can be rich, you can be a doctor. Oh, a prestigious doctor working, 12 hours a day, having no time for your family, no time for vacation. You can't do anything that you love. You don't have any hobbies. Your life is just work, work, work. Definitely in that case, you're not wealthy. And so the people who actually get wealthy divorce time from money. And so what does this mean? It basically means having an income that does not depend on you being there to earn it. It means that there's the possibility to earn money while you're asleep, while you're in the bathroom taking a shit, while you're in the shower. Right? It doesn't matter if you're at the job or not. And the thing is, most jobs right now, most jobs are by hourly pay or yearly pay, right? These jobs all equalize money with time. And that's exactly how you do not become wealthy. Because any job that has that relationship means that if you don't go to the job, you aren't earning any money. And that's something that I believe that every single person should know about. Right? Because you can earn money that's divorced from time. Authors, entrepreneurs, businessmen, people who do stocks or real estate, these are all divorced from time. Commissions as well. These are all things that can get you income without needing a certain amount of time invested. It's none of the $40 per hour or $60 per hour or $120 an hour. It's like no matter how high you go, there's a limited amount of time in a day, 24 hours. No matter how high you go up that, it doesn't matter because you're always going to be limited. And if you don't work for a day, that's 0 hours. Even if you had 120,000 million whatever rate per hour, you work 0 hours, anything times 0 is 0. So, I think that this concept is very important for anyone who wants to be financially well off and also just wealthy. Number 7 is you are not your thoughts. And so I remember around 2 years ago, around the time when this video is going to be uploaded, I was walking from my dorm to the dining hall. And so the thing was, my dorm was separate from the dining hall. Like, technically my dorm was like a separate dorm, but we ate at a different dorm. So it was like we had to walk outside for a bit until we got to the actual dorm to actually go to the dining hall to eat. And so it was the morning, and I was walking, and it was pretty chilly. And, I was feeling it. The wind was blowing, and I was like, damn, that's cold. And I told myself that, my body is feeling cold. I'm not cold. My body is feeling cold, but I'm just not cold. And so what I was doing was I was separating my mind, or just not even my mind, just me. Because I'm not technically my mind or my body. So I was just separating me, you can call it a soul or whatever, but I was separating me from my body. My body was feeling cold. I wasn't. And because I did that, I felt a little less cold. It's amazing what you can do when you separate you from your mind and body. And it's a little esoteric, yeah, I know. But the thing is, you are not your thoughts. You're not your bodily sensations. Because you have thoughts all the time. You have thoughts like, I am a good dancer. I'm not really. I am an educated person. I am disciplined. You have all these thoughts about who you are. But you change all the time. But certainly you have conflicting thoughts all the time. You can think at one moment, I'm extremely disciplined. And then a couple hours later, I am so lazy. You are simply not your thoughts. I don't know what you are. I don't know if we have a soul or not, but you're not your thoughts, you're not your mind, you're not your body. And I'm borrowing something from Buddhism, and I'm borrowing the argument from Buddha, which was, you are constant. Right, let's just say that you are constant. Okay. Like you as in like whatever is in this vessel or something, whatever, like your soul. I don't know, man. So you are constant. But your body isn't. Your body changes, always. Your mind also changes. And if these things change, they can't be you. Because if they were you, they'd have to be unchanging. But they aren't. Therefore, they aren't you. And certainly, some people will say that there's flaws with this argument. Although I would argue that the flaws are relatively there are not that many flaws, at least to my knowledge. I have no idea, right? But I do think that this is very useful whenever you are in distress, whenever you are feeling some bodily sensation that you don't like. Just thinking that I am not my thoughts, I am not my body. Having some separation from your mind and your body certainly helps you in whatever situation you're in. When I was cold, when I told myself that it wasn't my body, I wasn't the thing that was thinking that I was cold or that I was experiencing the coldness, that distance that I put between myself and my body / mind helped me experience less cold. And another part is tying into desire. Like I said, we have so many desires, right? But we usually never think about why we want certain things, why we want to desire certain things. We get desires from everywhere. Like, we get desires from the external world mostly, but we also get internal desires. And by following the philosophy of you are not your thoughts, you can divorce yourself from these desires. Like, I want this. Okay. Why do I want it? Is it necessary? Is it necessary to me that I get it? Is it going to be a part of me? No. It's always a no, because your thoughts are not you. Your desires are not you. Number 8 is a quote from my favorite anime, Code Geass. You should watch it if you haven't. And it's by the main character, Lelouch v. Britannia. And the quote is, "The only ones who should kill are those who are prepared to be killed." And I like this quote a lot because it shows conviction with anything you do. You always need to have conviction. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it. And I guess with this, I remember noting down this quote in high school. I think that was when I first watched the anime. And I wrote this in English class because when I heard it the first time, it was just so profound to me that it got me thinking, and I was just thinking, yeah, if you want to do something, you need to have conviction. And the more difficult that thing is, the more conviction you need to have. So that's just a personal choice. Number 9 is sort of 2 and 1-ish, but they're conveying the same idea. The first of 2 is by Ryan Holiday, and he says, "Belief in yourself is overrated. Generate evidence." And the second one of a similar idea is by Alex Hormozy. "You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt." And I think this is really important because you can't just tell yourself you're good, you're great, you're disciplined. You can't just become someone that you want to be just by telling yourself that you are. You need to actually become that person. You need to be able to do the things that mean you are that kind of person. And it also plays into imposter syndrome. And I've experienced that. But no longer anymore, because I know what I can achieve. When I got to college first, right, I was thinking that, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't doing enough. I was going to be found out that, I wasn't meant to be here. But that changed because I have 2 years of evidence that tells me that I'm not who I thought I was. I'm not the imposter. I am meant to be here. I have 2 years of evidence showing that I can do what I wanted to do. I am the person that I believe I am. And I think certainly being unconfident is a very big problem, especially for those who are younger and inexperienced. And the best advice you can possibly get if you're someone like that is to have so much evidence that you are not who you tell yourself to be, that you are not unconfident, that you are someone valuable, that it shatters that mindset that you have so much evidence telling you to your face that you are confident, you are capable, that you can finally be that confident person now, that you can defeat your self-doubt. And I think that this is the only way to defeat any kind of self-doubt. It's literally to just generate evidence that you aren't who you say you are, that you are successful, you're disciplined. And I'm reminded of this idea a lot whenever I fail at something, or whenever I see someone fail and then they get super down about it. Because when you fail at something, it's very easy to just tell yourself that, I'm a failure, I'm not who I said I was. Right? It's very easy to go into self-doubting mode. But it's a lot harder to do so when you remind yourself, I've done so many things. I've survived so many things. Yes, I failed, but I've succeeded in other ways, in so many other ways. And this one failure is not going to be the end of my life. I'm going to survive because I've done it before. And finally, the last one is you're going to die and no one is going to know it. In 2 or 3 generations, every single person who knew you will be dead. In 2 or 3 generations, not a single person will know you ever existed. Right? Just think about that. Right? 2 or 3 generations, that's what? Maybe 200 years? No one is going to know about you. No one. And so if you think about life like that, right? Why do you give a shit about anything anyone says? Right? If that person's gonna die in 20 years and you're gonna live for 60 more years, why the fuck do you care about him? You'll be living more than him by 40 years. And yet, we place so much value on people's opinions that don't even care about us. 1, they didn't even notice us. 2, if they did notice us, they probably don't care because they're thinking about themselves. 3, if they do care and if they did notice, they're going to die. And so are you. So why do you care? You shouldn't. And so I want to end off with this quote about death, because if everyone that knew you is going to die in 2 to 3 generations, why are you limiting yourself based on what you think other people are going to think about you? Why are you doing that? Why are you limiting yourself based off of being accepted by people who don't even matter? This isn't even people who are strangers to you. This is to your parents, to your children, to your grandchildren, to your great-grandchildren. Your great-great-great-grandchildren are not going to know who you are. Your parents, I'm assuming they're going to die earlier than you, right? So it doesn't matter what they think. Your friends are going to die as well. Everyone's going to die. And of course, I'm not saying that, you should disregard everything that everyone close to you says, right? It's I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that when people believe you are something, when people want to fit you in this hole, when people want to limit you, why should you let them? Why should you let them? Why do you care about what people think about you when they're going to die? And of course, there's an evolutionary reason, right? If you didn't care about the tribe, you're going to be left behind, and therefore you're going to die alone. Right? We don't want that. But now it's not like that anymore. So live your life. Live your life in accordance with what you want to do. You're going to die. What are you going to do in your life so that you can fully appreciate the time you have? Because if you live for someone else, it'll never be a life that you want to live. Never. Because it's not your life in that case. It's someone else's life that you're trying to fit. But it's not you. And so, live. Live your life. So that was 10 profound ideas. I'm going to be honest, this was quite fun. I really like discussing these things. And, who knows? I might do it again. But if you found some things interesting, if you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and check out my 2 books now. One on the basics of training. It's a book bundle. It has a bunch of things that you can check out. My second book is a nutrition book and also myths and fitness book. Covers also a lot of things. Both book bundles, they have lots of information, and I would say they are very valuable. But, I'm biased. So, if you're interested, go down to the description and check them out. And with that, I'll see you.